I want to talk today about time, Christ, and the gospel. What is time? Philosophers have thought about that, theologians have thought about that for centuries, but it's hard for us to grasp time, that concept of time. Now, we know how we experience time as human beings. We're born, and in our infancy, we're seeking simply comfort, and we don't have much memory of that time in our life. But then we move into childhood, and we begin to develop language and form relationships, especially those primary relationships, usually a relationship with the parents, especially the mother usually. And we're beginning to develop a little bit of self-awareness. Then we move into adolescence, and that's where the awareness of self increases, and also the awareness of other people more, and we're seeking our identity, and we're trying to find out, are we like this or like that, and we're relating to different groups of children and people besides our parents. And then we move into the age of youth and young adulthood too, and we begin to have more of an awareness of the world around us, and we seek intimacy with people. We begin to understand our own identity, and we reach out to others. This is often where courtship and marriage takes place, and we begin to take on more and more responsibilities. In adulthood, we begin to develop a sense of vocation, that there's something for me to do in my life and the people that I'm going to be with. And then we become very generative later in our adulthood, as we begin to, what do we have to give? What do we want to do with our life and invest our life, and how can we help others? And then we come into that declining years, or the latter years of life, where we begin to recognize weakness and in our bodies, and sometimes diminishing of our powers, and sometimes in our minds also, as memory loss, and parts of our experience like seeing or hearing begin to be diminished. And then we face death. Now that's how we experience life, on a kind of continuing from birth to death. We experience life, and we think about it in terms of three things: the past, the present, and the future. Now, the past is gone. The future hasn't happened yet. And we live on a razor's edge that we call the present. But the present is the only thing that we really have, but it's fleeting every moment. It's a razor's edge. By the moment that I started this video or even said a sentence, it's already in the past. And what is going to happen hasn't happened yet. It's the moment it happens in the present, then it becomes the past, just like that. So how do we experience past, present, and future to even talk about it as human beings? Well, we only have the present. That's all that we're in at that moment. But the past we experience as memory. It might be good memories, it might be bad memories. Many things happen that we can't remember at all. Some things happen that subconsciously we remember, but consciously we don't remember it. But the past is experienced in the present as memory. How do we experience the future? It's only in the present too, but we experience the future as in the present in anticipation. That is, something that has not yet happened that we anticipate may happen. Most of it, we have no clue what is going to happen. We cannot predict it. Things may happen that we could not see coming. Some things happen that we planned for. Some of the things that we planned for don't happen. We experience that as a kind of a disappointment or a change of plans. But your future we experience in the present as anticipation. Now, if the anticipation is something is good going to happen, we're looking forward to it, we think things are going to be good, we experience that as hope in the present. Hope is the trust, is faith in its future orientation. I trust, I think that things are going to work out, be okay in the present, and in the future I'm thinking that it's going to get better. If something bad is happening, I think it's going to get better. That I experience as hope, faith in its future orientation. But if I'm anticipating something that's very bad that's going to happen, I experience that as anxiety. If I don't think it's ever going to get better, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, I experience that as despair. That's what despair is all about. So we face the future in the present. We experience the future in the present only as anticipation, which may be anxiety, or it might be hopefulness. Now, if we have faith, if we have a basic trust that God is with us now in this present, we anticipate the future hopefully. If we don't think things are going to be good, if there is no God to help us, or we don't think God is going to help us, we experience that certainly as despair or hopelessness. So we have memory of the past. Now here's the thing, here's the trick. The past doesn't really stay past. We experience in the present as memory, and we might experience it as shame, that something had happened to us, and we keep experiencing that in the present as shame, even though this is something that's happened in the past. We might experience that as guilt, that we did something that was horrible and we just can't forgive ourselves, and it continues to be here in the present in the form of guilt. We might have had something happen to us that we remember, and it encourages or solicits such anger in us that we have this desire, we're absorbed with the desire for revenge, for the moment that in the future I can make a payback for what happened in the past. We may have lost an opportunity. We may have not done something we should have done, or we may have done something that we wish that we hadn't have done, and we can live that out as regret. Now, shame and guilt and the lust for revenge and regret, the past can keep invading our present in such a way that it distorts our future. It limits our ability to think beyond what we're going through right now and brings us into a distorted future, so that the past doesn't stay past. It keeps invading the present and shaping our future. Now, how does this relate to the gospel? Christ calls upon us to remember. Amnemnesis in the Greek, which doesn't mean just bare historical memory. It means to call on the power of the past to bear on the present for the sake of shaping the future. How that works is like this. And to say, what is the essential gospel message of a man that lived on this earth 2,000 years ago, that he has anything to do with me, except that past in my memory, which is calling on the power of the past, it bears on the present, because the gospel is about God accepting us and forgiving us of the past. Or there's a little exchange program that has been worked out. And that Christ takes all of our past, the shame, the guilt, the regret, our thirst for revenge, any of that is negative. He takes our past on himself, and in exchange for taking our past, he gives us his future. His future is resurrection. This is why resurrection and the death of Christ are inseparable. The cross and resurrection are inseparable. It is him summing up in himself, and kind of an act of spiritual imagination that we have, that all of our guilt, all of our shame, all of our regret, all of the lost opportunities, everything we did is put on him, and in exchange he gives us his future. He's raised again, and we will be raised. That gives me hope. And if I'm confident and I can have that trust that God has accepted me just as I am, with all of the bad things that have happened in my past, and he takes that on himself in an act of divine forgiveness and pronounces me, you're my child, you are forgiven, I have accepted you. When I accept that, I accept that I'm accepted, then I can live with a hopeful future, that no matter what happens, bad things will happen. I will face death. I will face the death of many loved ones, and I will face my own death. I may get sick. War may break out. A disaster may happen. But the ultimate truth about life is that the future is bright, The future is a time where it says God will wipe all tears from our eyes. There'll be no more suffering, no more sorrow, no more weeping, no more mourning, no more death, for the former things are done away. I love a vision that is there in the book of Revelation. That it was almost too wonderful for words, but yet the author put some words and just symbolic meanings to try to help us to look forward to the future, that no matter how bad the persecution was of those early Christians that received the book of Revelation, no matter what was going on in their life, and they would all die in different ways, but they could look to a future that said the angel in chapter 22, the closing chapter of the whole Bible and the book of Revelation, the angel showed me the river of life-giving water, shining like crystal, flowing from the throne of God and the Lamb through the middle of the city's main street. On each side of the river is the tree of life, which produced 12 crops of fruit, bearing its fruit in each month. And the tree's leaves are for the healing of the nations. And there'll be no longer any curse. And the throne of God and of the Lamb will be in it. And his servants will worship him, and they will see his face. And his name will be on their foreheads. Night will be no more. They won't need the light of lamp or the light of the sun, for the Lord God will shine on them, and they will rule forever and always. Now, these are not literal descriptions, but these is the best that the vision could be disclosed to us, is that the future is bright and hope. Christ takes our past and gives us his future. His future is full of light and brimming with hope. God bless you.